Lacardia is honor more do a bheith ag Lorch give aniu Kiga bliana ina dhé an dona fáilte a dura column kill. Aniu is Kevin yin na daoine a fuair bás ag an am seo, agus freisin na daoine eile a bhariad le an rialtas Sassany. Friends, I'm honored to be speaking to you today as we remember the Bloody Sunday martyrs and the many others who were killed by the British in Ireland. As a participant in the Bloody Sunday March, I never look on Bloody Sunday in isolation. I see it as just another example of the British state's violent response to political opposition anywhere, be that Africa, India, the Middle East, the Far East, or indeed Ireland. I see it as another example of the legacy of partition. We all know that in 1921, 80% of the people of Ireland voted for independence. This was denied by the British, who threatened a terrible war on the Irish, then partitioned the island on purely bigoted sectarian demographics. A house divided and destined to fail was set up. The Protestant Parliament for the Protestant people, as they called it, was enacted. This is why Northern Ireland cannot be reformed, as demonstrated by Bloody Sunday in Derry. Its whole philosophy is based on sectarian hegemony. Derry epitomised this, a city of 60% nationalists, was controlled by a pro-British loyalist local government, which controlled housing allocation, job allocation, transportation and other infrastructure, as well as the police and the judiciary. Bloody Sunday is often seen or called a major event in the Troubles in Ireland. The Troubles referring to the period from 1969 onwards. But there was never peace in Ireland. There couldn't be, as I said, it was based purely, its founding philosophy was sectarian hegemony. And the Northern Ireland state witnessed pogroms and civil strife in every decade since it was set up. The loyalist UVF had been murdering nationalists, Catholic nationalists, since the foundation of the state. We're also the first organisation to bomb an installation in the present so-called Troubles. They bombed a hydroelectric installation in Bealachashani in Donegal. Bloody Sunday was a civil rights anti-internment march. Previous civil rights anti-internment marches had been attacked by the paramilitary Royal Ulster Constabulary and their B Special Reserve Constable allies, as well as loyalist thugs. As popular resistance increased, so too did state violence. And in Derry in 1969, when the RUC, the B Specials and Loyalists tried to invade the nationalist area, they were beaten back by the nationalist population in Derry. And that's why the British Army arrived on the streets in Northern Ireland, not as peacemakers, but to shore up the political establishment. On August the 15th in Derry, when the British troops were sent into Derry, while they strolled in the late evening sunshine, the people, the nationalists in Belfast, suffered the onslaught of an attack by the RUC, B Specials and armed loyalists. As violence, political violence increased, the British adopted other measures. Mass arrests, curfews were introduced, but violence also kept increasing. In July 1971, 2 unarmed civilians were shot dead in Derry. Internment was introduced less than a month later, and in 48 hours after the introduction of internment, 9 nationalists were shot dead by the British Army in Belfast. Shortly after that, in December 1971, loyalists bombed McGurk's bar in Belfast, killing 14 nationalists. January 1972, we had the massacre of Bloody Sunday. In 1972, in July, 5 civilians were shot dead in Belfast in what is known as the Spring Hill Massacre. December 1972, 5 civilians were shot dead by the Loyalist UDA in Derry. There were the Dublin Monaghan bombings in 1974 when Loyalist and British agents in combination killed 34 innocent civilians in Dublin. There was the Miami Showband Massacre, the notorious activities of the so-called Glen Anne Gang, a death squad comprised of off-duty RUC members and British soldiers. 5 civilians were shot dead by Loyalist paramilitaries in Belfast in 1992. 8 civilians were shot in a bar in Derry in 1993. All the work of British agents and their allies. I could go on, but I'm just trying to convey of why I do not look at Bloody Sunday in isolation. It's just another example of Britain's dirty war in Ireland. And now we're hearing calls from the British government that we should draw a line onto this, that we should forget the past, we should move on. If I can indulge myself in one example of this, I had a nephew, Paul Witters. He was 15 years old. He was shot dead by a member of the RUC in Derry in 1981. Paul's father is dead, but his mother recently received a communication from the Ministry of Defence in England stating that files pertaining to the circumstances surrounding Paul's death will remain, as a matter of state security, will remain closed until 2089, 67 years from now. This is another illustration of the depths of the depravity of the British government that we are dealing with. A 15-year-old youth shot dead by a member of the Royal Ulster Constabulary, and they will not release information until 108 years after this event. The British do not want to be confronted with the evidence of their sordid past. They want it covered up as they wanted Bloody Sunday covered up. But the world knows now that on Bloody Sunday, British soldiers fired on unarmed civilians. They shot them as they ran for cover. They shot them in the back. In some cases, they shot them while they lay wounded on the ground. The Widgery Tribunal, which was set up after Bloody Sunday, was an effort to exonerate the British soldiers on the day, and more importantly, their political masters. But the truth about that event is out, and I hope, and we will work to make sure the truth of Britain's sordid, dirty war in Ireland is brought into the full light of day. I'll finish with some words by the poet Thomas Kinsella, who penned the poem The Butcher's Dozen several months after Bloody Sunday in Derry. Yet England, even as you lie, you give the facts that you deny. Speak the lie with all your power. All that's left, it's turning sour. Acharja Goramai Agaf, Agus Amacharja Garja Sinn Féin Berbua. Slán go fóill.